destination of millions of travelers, the heart of America, the scene of the greatest show on earth. It's the focal point of a nation. From all parts of the continent, crowds pour in seeking new experience, new thrills, new knowledge. This is America. America on parade. Through many entrances, eager crowds make their way toward the Avenue of Flags, where flying banners represent every nation. Special delegations march down this impressive avenue. The Northern Highlanders from Canada are here in all their glory. The world's biggest thermometer typifies the immensity and boldness of design of a century of progress. Joining the crowd in festive spirit, we go on toward the streets of Paris. The exterior represents a French steamship. The Latin Quarter of Paris is reproduced within. There's a big blimp flying along. Let's see how the fair looks from its cabin. Covering 22 long city blocks, the fair occupies all the space between Lake Michigan and Chicago's Outer Drive. A great island and the lagoon that separates it, even the sweeping bridges between, all carry elaborate exhibits, splendid restaurants, and entertainment features. Here, spread beneath us, is a city of tomorrow. The old and the new in transportation are housed in the Travel and Transport Building. It is called the Building That Breathes. Outside the building, early steam locomotives are in sharp contrast to modern streamlined trains. The Spanish Village represents a colorful bit of old Madrid. Daring aerialists thrill visiting crowds. General Motors is represented with a large building of modern design. The Chrysler exhibit is housed in a spectacular structure. Crowds are attracted by the Midget Village, populated by more than 100 merry-making Lilliputians. These folks may be small, but they certainly know how to get around. The long and the short of it. Hi, young feller. Transportation within a century of progress is rapid and inexpensive. Open-air buses in a never-ending stream cover the fairgrounds. Along the Midway, we come to the Lost River. Here, huge prehistoric monsters seem to live and breathe. How would you like to meet this fellow on his way to lunch? And now for a real thrill. A trip on the Sky Ride. The supporting towers rise 628 feet in the air, the highest man-made structure west of the Atlantic coast. Elevators carry passengers to the 210-foot level, where boat-like cars wait to carry them across the 1,850 feet between the towers. A magnificent panorama of the fair unfolds as the cars move along, suspended from strong steel cables. The impressive extent of a century of progress is more than ever apparent from this vantage point. Here's the Tunisian village.
Gentlemen, this is the Tunisian village, as you see the name above the doorway. Representing Northern Africa, the great Sahara Desert. Here is where you will see genuine bedrock Riders, and the Dancing Girls of Tunis, featuring Asia, who is conceded by the Bay of Tunis to be the greatest of all dancers. If she's good enough for the Bay of Tunis, she must be good enough for you. Tickets over here, 25 cents. Let's go, everybody.
The spell of the Sahara Desert is brought to Chicago by these nomadic tribesmen, who intersperse their newly learned Western games with feats of skill and strength. Wings of a Century, a pageant drama, depicts the development of transportation through 100 years of American history. The Century of Progress is thrilling, with its endless new sights and new sounds. But it takes its toll in energy toward the end of the day. You've heard about hot dogs at the fair. Well, here they are. At night, the Century of Progress becomes a veritable fairyland of light and color. Billions of candle power light the ground in the sky above. As nightfall clothes the marvels of the day with the enchantment of night, the fair takes on the appearance of a modern Baghdad. On the Ford building alone, more lighting is used than illuminated the entire World's Fair of 1893. In this galaxy of huge structures and advanced ideas, the Ford Exposition stands out in bold relief. The Ford building is nearly 1,000 feet long, the tower as high as a 10-story building. The Ford Exposition covers an 11-acre tract along the shores of Lake Michigan. It is surrounded by landscape gardens, from which the tall white walls of the building rise in striking contrast. It can be seen from almost any point in the fairgrounds. Inside the gigantic rotunda, more than 60 antique vehicles brought from Henry Ford's own priceless collection at Dearborn tell the story of man's conquest for faster and more comfortable travel. An ancient chariot, the ox cart, the covered wagon, and early automobiles of many makes are there. The outer wall bears a series of gigantic photographic murals, 20 feet in height and 600 feet in length, depicting scenes from the Ford Rouge plant in Dearborn. Here are Edsel Ford and Henry Ford, two of the most interested visitors at the Ford Exposition. In the center of the huge open court, a revolving globe mat, 20 feet in diameter, shows on its surface the vast extent of the Ford industrial world. Henry Ford's conception of industry includes the basic operations of mine, farm, and forest. Diorama or sculpture pictures depict the basic elements used in the Ford B8. Much of the Ford Exposition is built about the methods of fabricating these basic elements and materials into finished Ford parts. The central theme of the exposition is, out of the earth comes the Ford car. This fact is stressed again and again throughout the exposition. More than 5,000 firms supply material for the building of the Ford B8. 21 of the largest of these have displays in the Ford building. The industrial wing, which houses the exhibits, together with many others prepared by the Ford Motor Company, is larger than 2 football fields laid end to end. The building of speedometers for the Ford B8 is shown. Exacting tests must be passed by each speedometer before it is accepted. Ford speedometers tell the truth. They are born honest. Here, automatic machines cut gears for Ford at great accuracy. Even the gaskets for the Ford B8 must be carefully made to pass exacting tests for lasting qualities. Intricate looms weave upholstery for the Ford B8. Carburetors must satisfy expert testers. Here, precision plays a part in making the Ford B8 one of the fastest, liveliest, and most economical cars. A revolving display of parts for the Ford B8, many of which are never seen by the owner, form an interesting exhibit. Henry Ford has a keen interest in the practical education of youth. At the exposition, pupils from his trade school at Dearborn show how they learn to perform a useful part in the modern world of work and play. During a 4-year course, trade school pupils alternate between classroom and shop. This gigantic watch shows how automobile clocks operate. Here we see what good shock absorbers mean to riding comfort. A miniature mill reproduces the process of rolling steel ingots into strips. Cushion springs play an important part in riding ease. Special machines produce them for Ford B8s at a high rate of speed. Composition rollers, bearing the imprint of mahogany grain, impart a lasting finish to Ford V8 instrument panels. The safety of steel is combined with the beauty of wood. The sturdy, simple construction of the Ford car is shown by the dissected chassis, while a model motor, made entirely of glass, shows the inner workings of the Ford V8 engine. Sturdy Ford front axles offer resistance to a powerful twisting machine, but under extreme stress, bend without breaking. It is constant testing that ensures more quality. Here is a step in the preparation of rubber used in the making of tires, so vital to automobile operation. A battery of special welding machines forms the welded steel Ford wheel. So sturdy and strong is this Ford wheel that when suspended at the hub, 14 Ford cars can be hung from its rim. At the fair, 3 Fords are suspended from one wheel, but 11 more could have been added had space permitted. No wonder Ford owners feel safe. Bodies for the Ford V8 are made entirely of steel, welded together with special equipment developed to join the parts in unions, which are stronger than the material itself. Amid a shower of sparks, these 3 panels of the Ford V8 body are welded as hundreds of spectators look on. In another exhibit, safety glass for Ford windshields is made. 2 layers of glass with the center transparent binding sheet are pressed together and baked under high temperatures to form a single sheet of safety glass. The edges are now sealed with a special waterproof preparation to prevent separation or discoloration. Hot steel ingots are rolled into slender bars between hard metal rollers. These bars are cut into length and after reheating are automatically formed to shape to become drag links, an important part of dependable Ford steering gear. Crowds watching the pouring of white-hot liquid metal for casting processes. An electric furnace heats the metal to a temperature of more than 2,700 degrees, and it is poured off into ladles and later into molds. Flying shuttles, weaving upholstery cloth, never fail to prove fascinating. From thin sheets of brass rolled in special mills at the exposition, a marvelously intricate machine forms Ford V8 radiator tubing. This machine is one of hundreds, demonstrating the speed and absolute control of modern industrial devices. The upholstery woven in another part of the exposition is cut into shape and fed through a gigantic machine capable of producing seats and backs for 600 sedans an hour. This machine, called a multipleter, is contrasted with the old-fashioned handwork. Skilled designers model and play motor cars of tomorrow. A spacious balcony at the Ford building offers cool shade with an excellent view of Lake Michigan and the fair. The Ford V8 motor is a beautiful piece of machinery. In mechanics, beauty means simplicity. Here, skilled workers repeatedly disassemble and assemble a standard Ford motor to demonstrate its qualities of simplicity and accessibility. The average time required for them to completely assemble the V8 motor is less than 10 minutes. During this demonstration, many of the exclusive features of Ford V8 design become apparent. Spectators gain a better understanding of its remarkable performance, its records of long service. Simplicity of Ford V8 design is strikingly demonstrated by the fact that a Ford V8 motor can be and is assembled before your very eyes in less than 10 minutes. Aluminum cylinder heads are standard equipment on the 1934 Ford V8 passenger car engine. The story of aluminum, too, is told at the exposition. The molten metal is poured into a mold to emerge in the form of a V8 cylinder head. An escalator provides an easy approach to the balcony in the Ford Exposition building. Hexagon-headed bolts of uniform size and accuracy are produced from cold steel by a battery of automatic machines working with great rapidity. Even spark plug insulators for the Ford V8 are severely tested. If they can be lifted from a packing of dry ice more than 100 degrees below zero and suddenly thrust into a hot flame without breaking, they prove their ability to withstand punishment in actual use. Utilization of byproducts helps in quality manufacture. A Ford V8 contains more than 15,000 separate parts. Each of these, large and small, is displayed in this interesting exhibit. Intricate machines weave spider-like wiring systems. Wires like these will connect the lights, self-starter, generator, storage battery, and horns. The Ford Exposition includes an air-conditioned theater where a motion picture with special symphonic music tells the fascinating story of the Ford Rouge plant. Nearby, the latest Ford and Lincoln models are on display. The heart of the Ford Exposition is the humble shop where 40 years ago, Henry Ford, then a young unknown inventor, worked and planned and dreamed high dreams. There he built his first automobile. There, too, he conceived the theories of low-cost quantity production which have made his industrial organization the largest in the world under the control of one man. The vast improvement in machine shop equipment through the past century is vividly depicted by an early machine shop. In contrast is modern equipment, which tests Ford parts with an accuracy expressed in millionths of an inch. With one foot on the land and one in industry, America is safe, says Henry Ford. At his exposition, an industrialized barn shows how soybeans grown on the farm may be processed for industrial purposes. An extensive display of early traction engines stands in front of the Ford barn. The barn contains machinery which converts soybeans into the parts used in Ford cars. Mr. Ford has long predicted a closer and mutually profitable union between farm and industry. This Ford part was made from soybeans processed in the industrialized barn. Many visitors to the Ford Exposition make a circuit of the roads of the world. Ford cars are placed at the disposal of guests for a trip around the Oval, which contains sections of many famous roads of the world. Henry Ford has said that the auto made roads, and roads make commerce and civilization. In the short space of a comfortable 4-minute ride, these visitors are carried back through a period of 4,000 years to roads which knew the tread of the Roman legions, the yellow hordes of Genghis Khan, the moccasined feet of Daniel Boone, and his Indian friends. They see the bleaching bones of men and beasts as they rot beneath the fierce rays of the sun, beating down upon the great slave route across Africa. Here also are sections of roads from Germany, Belgium, Canada, Southern Africa, Asia, England, and many of the more modern types built in America today. Military roads, roads built exclusively for royalty, roads for slaves, all are there in this significant exhibit. And now, once more nightfall overtakes us. We end our day at the Ford Exposition by joining the throngs who sit at twilight in the amphitheater where the Detroit Symphony plays daily. It has been a memorable day, this one at the Ford Exposition. Here we have caught an echo of the hum of machinery and the throb of busy activity from the greatest of all industrial plants. Here, we have been able to sense something of its high purpose and its vast significance. The Ford Exposition is at once the fulfillment of a promise and the realization of a dream. It is an indication of the future, a reassuring prophecy of another century of progress.
Certainly make a wonderful wedding gift. Wish I could find time to drive out there, too.
Look, John. They're back to their first love.
Oh, look, Bob. I can move over without getting all tangled up.
Sure, that's the new gear shift lever. But here's what interests me. Nice, wide seat, clear vision, and...
Now, John, you're not buying a car for yourself, you know.
Pardon my enthusiasm, Mother, but do you remember our bridal coach? Just 2 horsepower, wasn't it?
And that nosy old coachman.
Yes. Well, I guess that settles it. Can you deliver this car in time for the wedding Saturday noon? It will be there, Mr. Allen.
Oh, Dad, you're precious. A wonderful wedding gift and a grand trip to the San Diego Fair. I'm the happiest person in the world.
Pretty good test for a car. Massachusetts to Southern California. Not a test. An opportunity to prove everything I've told you.
Gee, I'm crazy about it.
Whoopee! What a lucky break for me. Coast to coast, a trip to the San Diego Fair, and a couple of honeymooners.
Where do you think you're going?
To the San Diego Fair.
Never mind that, sister. Let's see your license. Honeymooners, eh? Well, I guess you two are up in the clouds. Why don't you go up there and take a look? At least you'll be able to see where you're going.
Was a demonstration of good brakes. The new positive action brakes on all Ford V8s give you just what you need when you need it most. The next stop, folks, Pikes Peak, more than 14,000 feet above sea level. And watch me climb it. Here's a steep one, and I'll take it in high. They all look alike to me. See that nasty turn? Easy for me. With a short turning radius and transverse springs, I can turn on a dime and have a nickel left over. Some climb, and I'm not even breathing hard.
Yes, they've seen Pikes Peak. And by now, they should be right in the middle of Zion National Park.
It's called one of the wonders of America.
And can't you just see them, simply drinking in the beauties of nature?
Well, folks, again, those two seem to be missing all this marvelous scenery. But there's one big pleasure they can't miss. That's the center-poise ride of these new Ford V8s, combining comfort with stability and safety.
Beautiful.
Beautiful.
of thing. Now, what would you do about that? I've got it. I'll visit the San Diego Fair alone. Then I'll come back later to pick up those two lovebirds. They'll still be sitting there. So watch my speed. Watch the Fords go by. Whee!
Señoras y caballeros, we give you the fiesta at San Diego. California's traditional hospitality, handed down for generations from the gracious days of the Spanish Dons, is beckoning millions of guests to San Diego's California Pacific International Exposition. From every part of the Americas, north, south, and central, they come. And like the hostess of old, San Diego has outdone herself to provide gaiety, cultural adventures, fine music, beautiful architecture, modern industrial displays, and plenty of joyous, carefree fun. The lovely architecture of 16th century Spain rears its slender white spires and delicate traceries in sharp relief against summer skies. The dark-eyed flower girl who bewitches us into buying an exotic tropical bloom for our buttonhole says, "Muchas gracias, senor." And her merry smile costs us nothing. Balboa Park, scene of the exposition, boasts 1,000 graceful trees, and set like a white gem in a deep green mounting, is one of the largest of the fair exhibits. In this building, a brief cross-section of the Ford plant at Dearborn tells the story of raw materials and their progress from earth to automobile. Trained lecturers explain each exhibit, telling, for instance, how soybeans are processed to make parts for Ford cars. Henry Ford, you know, believes that a great deal of the automobile of the future will be grown on the farms of America. Industry has its fireworks too, and brilliant displays mark the path of the electric arc welding machine, a device that contributes strength and safety to modern automobiles. The heart of any car is its engine, so one exhibit shows this miracle of engineering. Two mechanics prove that it takes only a few minutes to assemble and take down the famous V8 engine. Boys representing the Henry Ford Trade School have an interesting exhibit at San Diego. Remember the stories about medieval torture chambers that made your blood run cold? On the rack, many parts are subjected in a few hours to the same punishing wear and strain they undergo in months of hard driving. Yes, sir. Parts for a modern automobile have to be able to take it and come up with a bounce, like these valve seat inserts. Oh, there's one that didn't quite make it. Even Ford's safety glass must prove its worth when a falling steel ball strikes it with a crushing blow that would demolish ordinary plate glass. At Ford plants, there's many a penny saved in a big byproducts department utilizing everything. They're even trying to use the whoosh you hear as the Fords go by. A marvelous working model at the fair shows how this byproducts department functions. Strolling around this fair certainly takes it out of you, doesn't it? Let's see, can't we find some place to rest? Ah, yes, here's one. And we're on the beautiful Ford verandas overlooking San Diego and the blue waters of the bay. Isn't this perfect? Hello, here's a young Balboa. He got his fare ticket on condition that he'd keep an eye on his young brother Tommy. Hello, will you look at that? Now, who would ever have thought of using this beautiful V8 fountain in the Ford building patio for a rendezvous with an ice cream cone? Well, a lot of folks agree with this youngster, and the Ford patio is one of the most popular places for relaxation on the fairgrounds. There is music, grateful shade, and inviting benches. Outside, in the great Ford Bowl, symphony orchestras, choirs, and choruses give series of concerts, and artists present recitals daily on the new electronic organ. Let's take a ride around the Ford roads of the Pacific just outside the building. Hop into a 1935 car, and we're off. Here's the old plank road from California across the desert to Yuma, Arizona. Then Japan's Tokaido, which figures in that country's fable and song almost as importantly as Fujiyama, the sacred mountain. Panama's Gold Road comes next, literally paved with the bones of men and beasts who broke its weary miles through steaming jungles. The old Spanish trail is so old that history fails to record its actual beginning. We haven't time to see all the roads, but they're not the half of it. What's that hubbub? My gracious, it's the Midway, and what a Midway! What a riot of color and noise. There's everything here that you've ever seen, and some more that you haven't. Come on along to the Midway. Never mind how old you are. You'll be 10 years younger by the time we get through. Well, 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 here's our old friend Tommy with the ice cream cone. And he still has to put in a few more licks. No wonder these youngsters try to make everything at the fair last as long as possible. There's never been anything just like it before, and may never be again. For it combines a nostalgic old world charm and color with the newest in this hustling modern world of ours. Here is a vacation opportunity such as you may never find again. Drive through the national parks and scenic wonders of the far west to this sparkling, colorful fiesta at San Diego. An exposition that is a dedication to California's yesterday, today, and tomorrow. And a toast to the continuation of an American epic on the Pacific coast that will be written large in the history of the nation as the years march on.
The new Ford cars for 1940. Here's the news you've been waiting for. Presented so that you may become familiar with the improvements and be ready to make the most impressive presentation to your prospects. It's a story of remarkable progress within the gates of the great Rouge plant. Progress based on the experience gained in building more than 27 million motor cars. It's a story of rigorous research in the great laboratories at the Rouge. Unending effort to find new and better ways of doing things. It's a story of constant testing under conditions far more severe than any car can possibly be expected to undergo on any road, in any weather, in the hands of any owner. A great story? We'll let you draw your own conclusions. We're going to get right down to brass tacks and tell you the things you want to know. The things you'll be eager to tell people who come in at introduction time. And the good news you'll want to start spreading among your prospects. As you watch this 1940 Deluxe Ford V8 approach, here's something to remember. The new Ford cars have 22 important improvements. And we said important. Real advances with sales appeal resulting from a close study of what the public wants in an automobile. Improvements that give you something new to talk about in style, luxury, comfort, quiet, convenience, and safety. Before we start to examine them in detail, we'll give you a moment to look at the whole list. You can't memorize it now, but you'll see it in national advertisements. It will be in your sales literature. Even this list of important changes doesn't include everything that's new. And remember that they are in addition to all the time-proved Ford features and the fundamental story of Ford quality. Let's look at these new cars as they pass before the camera. There's style and beauty unequaled, unprecedented in the low-price field. Beauty inspired by the style leader, the Lincoln Zephyr.
My cylinders, count them are 8. What others do well in, we're built to excel in with 8. V8. We're naturally proud to relate. You'll say, my good gracious, such comfort so spacious with 8 V8.
A newly designed front end on both the Deluxe and the lower-priced Ford V8 for 1940. A low, wide radiator grille on both cars. These are really modern cars with a strong, graceful beauty that continues throughout the length of the body in both the Deluxe and the Ford V8 models. Big cars with long hoods, long lines, and an attractive use of bright metal. New interior beauty, too, is a feature of the 1940 Ford cars. Look at the rich, roomy interior of this Deluxe Ford. Beautifully fitted, with every detail designed to please the prospect's eye. Both the new Deluxe and the lower-priced Ford V8 have considerably more legroom, as much as 4 inches in the sedans, and both have more elbow room and greater seating comfort. The appointments are of the type that appeal to all prospects, that help you sell the car on sight. For 1940, the Deluxe Ford has a smart 2-tone instrument panel in maroon and rose sand. with 2 conveniently placed ashtrays, 1 at each end. And with a new instrument grouping that puts speedometer, gauges, and headlamp beam indicator directly in the driver's line of vision through the new 2-spoke steering wheel. The glove compartment has plenty of room and is equipped with a clock on the door. The 2-tone harmony of the deluxe instrument panel is carried out in the steering wheel and fittings, and continues through a choice of handsome upholstery fabrics that blend with the car's interior fittings. Here's harmony of appointments that sets a new pattern for luxurious interior styling. The instrument panel of the lower-priced Ford V8 is newly designed, too. This year, every Ford car has a dimming switch for instrument panel lights, a battery condition indicator, a lock for the glove compartment door, and 2 ashtrays in the instrument panel. Extra value features all. Here's sensational news for you and every motor car prospect. Both the new Deluxe and the lower-priced Ford have fingertip gear shift on the steering post at no extra cost. This is one of the many 1940 Ford features with great sales appeal for all and with special significance for women drivers. As Ford engineers have developed it, this type of gear shift is simple, smooth, quiet, and easy to operate. Shifting can now be done with the fingertips. Because the gear shift lever is mounted on the steering post, there is more leg room in the front compartment, and the engineering of the new shift brings a new degree of quiet operation. Yes, this new Ford attains a new degree of quiet throughout. Scientific soundproofing, already a Ford feature, has been carried even further this year. For further quiet, both Ford cars now have the blocker-type transmission used in the Mercury and the Lincoln Zephyr. So perfectly are the gears synchronized that gear shifting is now easier and quieter. Here's another feature that contributes to the built-in quiet of these new Fords. Curved disc wheels that reduce tire and road noises and sounds resulting from brake application, and also add to beauty. Now an entirely new ventilating system for all 1940 Ford cars. Controlled ventilation. The front windows are divided. The forward section not only pivots, but tilts as it swings. The rear half of the window rolls down completely, leaving no metal strip to obstruct the driver's vision or to interfere with hand signals. Yes, comfort with a capital C is a mighty important feature of these new Ford cars. You know what Ford triple cushion comfort meant last year. This year it has been developed to an even higher degree. The deep, soft, floating edge seats are of an improved construction. The Ford double-acting hydraulic shock absorbers are newly designed for 1940 to include a self-sealing packing gland that guards against fluid loss and requires less frequent servicing. And here's another brand new improvement, a ride stabilizer on all 85 horsepower models to give an even smoother ride. The ride stabilizer is a torsion bar that helps keep the car on an even keel under unfavorable driving conditions. Take your prospects out on the highway and let them get the feel of this new Ford ride. And again, in 1940, the Ford stabilized chassis gives level starts, level stops, and a level ride through the use of full torque tube drive, transverse springs, front radius rods, and unusually low center of gravity. For 1940, the spring suspension has been improved through the use of a longer front spring on all 85 horsepower Ford models. Both front and rear springs are softer. Demonstrate this new Ford ride to every possible prospect. Look at this new 2-way adjustable driver's seat. This seat is now adjustable within a range of 4 1/2 inches and rises as it slides forward without changing the correct restful angle of the seat back. There's added comfort, too, in the design of the new type resilient front seat backs. They make possible additional inches of leg room without sacrifice of comfort. Safety is always an important sales factor, and these 1940 Ford cars give you a chance to present a safety story that can't be beat. For safety at night, new sealed beam headlamps. This new type headlamp that gives 50% greater illumination and permits the driver to see nearly twice as far ahead, and the original efficiency lasts practically for the life of the lamp. Lamp bulb, lens, and reflector are sealed in a single unit so that dust and moisture can't get in to corrode the reflectors. The new lamps have two separate beams, a country beam for the open road and a traffic beam for passing or city driving. The traffic beam, stronger than the previous driving lights, is directed down the side of the road at a sharp angle to the right, so that approaching drivers get no glare, yet all objects are clearly revealed. For convenience, the control button has been moved to the left of the clutch pedal. And the headlamp beam indicator is now centered above the instrument group directly in front of the driver. Demonstrate the sealed beam headlamp system at night. Show the greatly improved vision and greater safety these lamps provide. All new Ford cars have separate parking lamps set into the rims of the sealed beam headlamps. For further safety, through better vision, the dual windshield wipers on the 1940 cars are now mounted at the base of the windshield. And for 1940, the big, powerful Ford hydraulic brakes have steel drums with cast iron braking surfaces, which are quieter in operation. But now, let's look beneath the hood. Again this year, the V-type 8-cylinder engine that has given dependable, economical performance to more than 6 million owners. The engine that has made the term V8 synonymous with the Ford name. Plus a new battery of 20% greater capacity. And a higher output generator to meet the demands of the sealed beam headlamps and the many other electric units to be found in these 1940 cars.
In 1940, the great Ford V8 ride reaches even greater heights of comfort, safety, and roadability through the adoption of new improvements in design and construction. There is an interesting story to be told about these improvements, a story of constant engineering research and testing to find new and better ways to attain the peak of riding comfort. This is the story of a finely balanced combination of ride features, each feature designed to do a specific job in order to prevent bumps in the road from reaching the passengers in the car. Working together, the seat cushions, the rigid frame, the riding base, the springs and shackles, the shock absorbers, and the tires all perform their part to ensure passengers against road shocks. The efficient performance of each of these features is essential to the efficient performance of all. Together, they are responsible for the riding comfort. A long spring base or riding base is a fundamental requirement for maximum riding comfort. And in this respect, Ford-built cars excel. Here we see the riding base of the Ford V8, 123 inches. The wheelbase, through exclusive engineering features, is held to a lesser dimension, thus enabling easier handling and easier parking. The seats are chair-high, wide and deep, tilted at just the right angle for greatest comfort. Longer springs have greater flexibility and produce a more comfortable ride. The 1940 front springs, which are approximately 2 inches longer, have a slower oscillation frequency with still more freedom from jolting action. Ford spring suspension guarantees independent action on all 4 wheels. Ford spring leaves are rounded and tapered at the ends to further increase their flexibility and eliminate scraping action. The main leaf of the spring is supported throughout its entire length by the second leaf, which extends past the shackle bolt. Controlled internal spring lubrication, as shown in this cutaway section, ensures thorough lubricant distribution by force under pressure to every necessary point. This is an exclusive feature. Each leaf is grooved lengthwise on both sides. These grooves join a passage which is cut into the sides of the center bolt hole. The leaves are held together with a solid bolt. A specially designed nut permits the lubricant to enter the grooves in the spring leaf. Inverted arch springs like this allow lubricant to drain away from friction points, but the arch of the Ford spring creates a gravity flow to the ends of the leaf where needed. The flexible metal spring covers provided on deluxe models effectively seal the lubricant in while affording complete protection against sand and dust, salt and other corrosive agents, and water. The kind of lubricant used is important.
Ford spring lubricant is recommended exclusively. Developed by Ford Laboratories, this lubricant is composed of an oil chosen to flow and penetrate at all temperatures and polishing materials with suspending agents in scientifically determined proportions. It will not dry out nor clog the grooves. It keeps the leaves polished and efficiently lubricated, polishing as it lubricates, which prevents pitting, rusting, and scraping, thus maintaining high riding qualities. Side sway and rolling must be controlled. The improved ride stabilizer keeps the body on an even keel when rounding curves at high speeds. It resists the tendency to veer when struck by strong crosswinds. The endurance of the ride stabilizer is demonstrated on the torture machine, where continuous wrenching and twisting go on incessantly. Double-acting shock absorbers assist in the creation of superior ride performance. Important improvements for 1940 make the necessity for servicing less frequent. To better illustrate the simplicity and rugged construction of these improved shock absorbers, the demonstration model is shown. First, there is the wing shaft. Next, the flange with the fixed wings, which are held in the dowels. Then the 70-pound tension spring, the spring seat, the packing seat, the rubber-impregnated felt packing and fiber packing, and finally, the cover. The self-adjusting wing shaft packing gland, together with an automatic continuous pressure take-up spring, exerts approximately 70 pounds pressure on the packing around the wing shaft, eliminating manual adjustment of the wing shaft packing gland. Enlargement of the orifice in the wing shaft facilitates passage of the fluid, particularly in cold weather. The valve still retains the feature of automatic release under extreme pressure. An improved check valve at the lower end of the wing shaft results in a much softer ride during slow movements of the shock absorber without sacrificing stability. The longer springs exert less rebound pressure. Therefore, the resistance of the shock absorber has been reduced to conform with the new springs. Another improvement. One simple, easy adjustment permits you to fit the ride to individual requirements. Tires also contribute to riding qualities. Every Ford-built car is equipped at the factory with tires of correct size for greatest riding comfort, safety, and maximum tire life. The resiliency of the tire at a specified pressure is predetermined by the manufacturer. Any variation in this recommended pressure seriously affects the ride. Therefore, it is highly important that recommended pressures always be maintained. Each of the features operating normally will perform its function efficiently and unfailingly to maintain complete ride satisfaction. The cushions, frame, springs, shackles, shock absorbers, ride stabilizer, and tires, coupled with unusually long riding base, all contribute their part to the ride. But to ensure their normal functioning, periodic inspection, lubrication, and occasional adjustments when required should be performed by qualified servicemen. The factory-recommended procedure follows. First, correct tire inflation to specified pressures in all tires. Second, place the car on the hoist. Third, examine springs and lubricate with special Ford M4628 spring lubricant. Whenever possible, explain to the owner that this special lubricant is essential to satisfactory performance and is available at all authorized dealers. Fourth, examine spring shackles for excessive wear and correct if shackle bolt is rubbing on shackle link. Fifth, verify level of fluid in shock absorbers and add Ford shock absorber fluid until it begins to run out of the filler hole. Impress the owner with the importance of using only genuine Ford shock absorber fluid, M1046. Improperly serviced and adjusted shock absorbers will do much to destroy the excellent riding qualities of the car. Sixth, observe the position of the pointer on all four shock absorbers. Be sure that they are set identically in relation to the master setting scribed on the body of the instrument, which designates the original factory adjustments. Do not attempt adjustment on new cars until driven at least 1,000 miles. 7, test adjustments on the road, with the owner if possible, and be sure he is satisfied. Inform him Ford shock absorbers can be adjusted to his individual requirements. If the owner feels the action is too free, turn the pointer clockwise 1/32nd of an inch. For a freer action and softer ride, turn the pointer counterclockwise 1/32nd of an inch. Never turn the pointer more than 1/32nd of an inch in either direction for each trial, because a very slight movement of the adjusting pointer makes a tremendous difference in the resistance of the shock absorber. Out on the test track, the importance of all these features is readily apparent. The Ford springs and rugged front axle resist side sway and help maintain a correct riding position. The wheels do not lean dangerously in a direction opposing the turn, thus assuring the driver of maximum safety and easy steering control. The Ford ride stabilizer keeps the car on an even keel. Besides being important for riding comfort, it also provides a measure of safety. Here's a road that proves the stamina and strength of the car, and especially the springs and shock absorbers. Those big bumps in the road ahead are higher than the average curbstone and are placed alternately to produce the greatest twisting action. Of course, no car in normal service will ever be subjected to such extreme usage. The torture road is well named, constructed of big, irregular-shaped stones set in concrete. It delivers terrific impacts. Yet, slow motion proves that the body rides practically level while the wheels are jolting vigorously up and down over the rough boulder surface, a convincing proof of a great ride. The tri-component accelerometer used by engineers records the movement of the car's action on film. Here is a strip of the film. In this way, Ford engineers are continually checking ride performance. But here is simplified and convincing proof that anyone can understand. First, the car travels over this torture road with shock absorbers improperly adjusted. The car is writing a record of its movement as it travels along. Notice the white marker on the front hubcap and front fender. The white mark on the hubcap shows how wheels follow the contour of the road. Watch the fender marker. Remember, the shock absorbers are incorrectly adjusted. Now let's adjust the shock absorbers correctly and repeat the same test. Look at the difference. Now the upper line indicating body movement is practically level, while the wheels bounce just as violently as before. This is absolute proof that correct adjustment is extremely important. Every feature we have described is important. Luxurious cushions, rigid frame, long riding base, long flexible springs, vertical spring shackles, improved ride stabilizer, double-acting hydraulic shock absorbers, correct tire pressures, and efficient maintenance service. At every opportunity, make sure that each ride feature is working at its maximum efficiency. Leadership in engineering must be supported by leadership in service. Built into the Ford V8 for 1940 is a great new ride. And it is the responsibility of the servicemen to maintain this riding comfort at its peak.
Being host to so many members of the press at the preview of new Ford, Mercury, and Lincoln Zephyr cars in Dearborn October 2nd was a lot of fun, and the guests all seemed to have a good time, too. The photographic department has the proof of that in this little movie showing the main events of the day. And what a swell day it turned out to be for a trip to the country. So this is our review of the preview. After the presentation of the 1940 cars and trucks in the theater of the Ford Rotunda, everyone came out and got in one of the new cars. There were 50 new 1940 cars on hand to take guests to see some of the 15 village industries Mr. Ford has established on water power sites along some of the little streams within a radius of 50 miles of Dearborn. Here you get a glimpse of the drive-in produce stand Mr. Ford built for the boys in Camp Legion. In this camp, 65 boys from the families of needy war veterans are partners with him in a unique farming and business venture. They farm 320 acres of land. As for pay, they get $2 a day and keep and divide the profits from the sale of produce between themselves at the end of the season. The caravan, divided into 5 groups of 10 cars each, rolls along the beautiful Ann Arbor Trail. Then it draws up at Nankin Mills. This attractive little plant is the first of the Ford Village Industries. Mr. Ford established it in 1918 as part of his plan for a better balance between agriculture and industry, and to show that even small streams could provide power for industrial use. This building once was a tumble-down grist mill, a relic of pioneer days, but now it contains the most modern machinery. Here, instead of grinding meal as they did in the old days, skilled workmen make stencils and small dies for use in the big Ford Rouge plant in Dearborn. Power is provided by the stream, but nowadays the water drives an electric generator instead of turning the old mill wheel. From Nankin Mills, the route leads by the little Newburgh plant, situated at the entrance of one of the region's finest parks. The plant is in its own park-like setting on the shores of the scenic lake, which supplies water power. Ford workmen here produce twist drills for use in the Rouge plant. Then the party arrives at Plymouth. In this plant, taps for threading metal are made by highly trained craftsmen, many of whom own and operate farms in the countryside nearby. This building also is on the site of an old grist mill, and like all the others, it was designed to fit harmoniously into the countryside, for these village industry buildings are things of beauty as well as utility. The Michigan countryside is lovely at this time of year, and visitors were interested in the number of little lakes, such as this one along the route. Phoenix was the next plant on the itinerary. It was of particular interest to the ladies in our party, because almost all the employees in the Phoenix plant are women. They make small parts for the electrical system of our cars, such as generator cutouts, voltage regulators, and stoplight switches. All of them live nearby and drive to and from work, and all of them receive full Ford wages, just as do all other workers in these Ford village plants. The motorcycle escort led the way on to Waterford, a delightful little plant where precision gauges are made. Ford's standards of accuracy are very high, so much so that more than 38,000 precision gauges are in use each working day in the Ford Rouge plant. Many of the gauges are made here. Since some of the gauges are accurate to millionths of an inch, making them requires skill. And now the group gets underway for the short ride to the last plant on the schedule. This is the Northville plant, distinguished by its picturesque water wheel. This little plant really isn't so little because it employs more than 200 men from the village and nearby countryside. An old sawmill formerly stood here, and when this modern plant was built, people called it Factory in a Meadow because of the beauty of the site. They make engine valves in this plant, and the guests inspected some of the valves as they moved along on overhead conveyors. In fact, here are some of them, and them means both guests and valves are shown. Once everyone was back in the cars, the caravan wasted no time on the road back to the Ford Rotunda in Dearborn. And upon arriving there, they found the north lawn had been converted into an outdoor picnic site, with gaily colored umbrellas, rustic tables, and strolling men with mandolins, to say nothing of accordions and bowl fiddles. All the actors in the movie did particularly well in this scene. They turned in a natural and convincing performance, and no wonder. Everyone was hungry, a real barbecue assembly line. Very much among those present at the table was John R. Davis, Ford General Sales Manager, seen in action here. And enjoying himself just as much as Edsel Ford. Mr. Ford spent a busy morning welcoming the guests and needed no urging when the come and get it call was sounded. The hillbilly band from the Rouge plant serenaded at almost every table before they had to knock off for their own lunch. And now, who says the ladies aren't interested in mechanical things? When they visited the final assembly line, they started right in to help make a new 1940 Ford V8 themselves.
New York City, August 26, 1940. 48 high school-age boys, each the best driver in his state, assemble at the Commodore Hotel for the national finals of the Ford Good Drivers League. Each boy is accompanied by an adult sponsor. Here they are registered and fitted out with natty blue and white jackets. Guests of honor at a gala luncheon, the lead-off event in a week packed with excitement and activity for these young men. Each state winner receives an engraved gold wristwatch in testimony of his driving skill. Under the Good Driver emblem, George F. Perot, League Secretary, introduces the Board of Judges and special guests. Elmer P. Grierson of the American Boy magazine. Louis R. Maroney, representing the Association of Motor Vehicle Administrators. F.L. Black of the Ford Motor Company. J. Stannard Baker of the National Safety Council. And Inspector Siri of the New York Police Department. New York City's official welcome is extended by Mayor LaGuardia's Executive Secretary, Stanley Howe, who congratulates the boys on their achievements. Dr. F.R. Knopfsinger, Educational Consultant, American Automobile Association, outlines the program for the 2 days of competition. Then off to the Ford Exposition Building at the World's Fair, where the national contest is held. And here's the parade of champions, each with his own special car carrying a special license plate of the home state he so proudly represents. And our contestants move on through the heart of New York to the scene of the national finals. Over the Queensboro Bridge with the world's most famous skyline in the background. And into the world of tomorrow, where they cross the famous Bridge of Wheels. Through the winding drives of the fairgrounds, they come at last to the Ford Exposition Building.
The Ford Exposition Building. Newly designed for 1940, the Ford building, together with its gardens, covers 7 acres. It is strikingly modern in design and full of action. To the left of the front entrance is a huge statue of the mythical god Mercury, symbolizing fleet, effortless travel. The main entrance hall is a symphony in color and a fascinating introduction to what follows. Here is a panorama of the motor car age, starting with the first Ford car, built in 1903, and coming down to the present Ford, Deluxe Ford, Mercury, Lincoln Zephyr, and Lincoln, style leaders for the road of tomorrow. Visitors pause long before Henry Ford's first gasoline engine and marvel at the huge mobile mural by Henry Billings, the first moving mural in the world, symbolizing the dependence of industry upon pure science. From 10 in the morning until 10 at night, the industrial hall is a scene of activity, with crowds thronging around the manufacturing exhibits. And dominating this scene is the central exhibit, the Ford Cycle Up production, a giant turntable 100 feet in diameter, weighing 152 tons and floated in 20,000 gallons of water. With the cycle of production as a background, other exhibits show actual operations, the casting of molten iron, the growing use of farm products in industry, with a demonstration of soybean processing and the making of plastics, and a dramatic contrasting of handwork and machine work. This exhibit shows that the Ford car, if made by hand, would cost about $17,000, while machinery makes cars at prices people can pay and creates millions of jobs as a result. These are just a few of the highlights in this fascinating industrial hall. Directly off this hall is the new Ford Theater, where seated in cushioned, air-conditioned comfort, visitors witness a veritable 3-star production, a ballet fantasy called 1,000 Times Nay, in which a talking horse takes the feature comedy role. a gala style show that combines the latest in fashions with the newest in motor car design. From the industrial hall, visitors stream into the garden court and onto the loading platform for a thrilling ride on the road of tomorrow, a dream highway of the future built as a part of the Ford Exposition Building. In brightly colored Ford, Mercury, and Lincoln Zephyr cars, visitors are driven around this road of the future for more than half a mile, up the spiral ramp showing how traffic can be lifted to the express level without wasting space, around and through the building itself. The Ford building is on the highest point of land in the fairgrounds, and the view of the fair from the road is one of the best. No cross traffic, complete separation of opposing streams of traffic. The road of tomorrow.
As a part of the contest, every boy is graded in a series of reaction tests to determine his inherent driving ability. Besides the test for eye balance, each participant undergoes a test for color blindness, measurement of glare reaction and glare retention, complex reaction test, and finally takes his place behind the wheel of the driveometer, an ingenious machine which duplicates in miniature many of the driving problems encountered in an average 50 miles of travel. In the Court of Peace are held a series of intricate tests to determine each boy's ability to maneuver a car in close quarters. If you think that was tough, watch this. Uh-oh, he loses a point for hitting that stanchion. Talk about stopping on a dime. He's close, but not close enough. Here's one that really takes skill. What if they built grease racks this way? A keen eye and a steady hand that would reflect to the credit of a veteran driver. Emergency stop. Watch those puffs of smoke. They measure driver's reaction time and braking distance. And if you think your Saturday night parking problem's bad, look at this. Parallel parking with only 2 feet to spare front and rear. Anybody who's kept his car in a narrow alley garage will feel for this lad. The white line in the foreground is that fence across the way that used to nick front fenders for us. But you see, it can be done. And now the actual road driving tests. Final check. Gas, oil, air, water, and battery, everything set and ready to go. Here they go. A $5,000 university scholarship awaits the winner. But it wasn't all work for the boys. They saw the sights, too. Enough to thrill the heart of any red-blooded American boy is this inspection trip through the American Airlines Maintenance and Operation Base at LaGuardia Field, the world's most modern airport. The boys find their sea legs in a boat trip around Manhattan Island. Anchors away, and never a dull moment on this cruise, complete with music and everything. Seems somebody ought to be doing a sailor's hornpipe. And sure enough, there is. Or what do you call that? Slipping down the broad Hudson, the boat passes close to great liners lying in dock waiting for happier days. And on down the river against the sharp spires of New York's imposing skyscrapers, to Battery Park and the famous aquarium, at the extreme southern tip of Manhattan Island. The boat trip around the island was particularly interesting to the boys, most of whom had never before visited New York City. For the boys who were sport fans, all of them in other words, the Sportsman's Luncheon was a real treat. The principal speaker was none other than that best-known and best-loved of all sports commentators, Grantland Rice. Lefty Gomez and Babe Dahlgren of the New York Yankees are the principal attraction at this table, while Kieran, Rice, and Mr. Ford fall easy prey to the autograph hunters here at the speaker's table. More sightseeing. Radio City, shrine of movie fans all over the country. Dinner for Dobbin, while one of New York's finest looks on. This gay scene sounds the keynote for the championship banquet at the Ford Exposition Building. League President Edsel Ford chats with the boys, while the orchestra continues to play, setting the stage for the presentation ceremonies. Fred Black, manager of the Ford Exposition, opens the program. Introducing Toastmaster Linton Wells, world traveler and famed radio news commentator. Principal speaker is Captain E.V. Rickenbacker, whose celebrated career in the automotive and aviation worlds endears him to every boy. Toastmaster Wells presents Edsel Ford, whose brief address precedes the announcement of winners and awarding of prizes. The League will continue next year, says Mr. Ford, with girls as well as boys eligible to membership. The awards are made. To every boy, a scholarship of at least $100.
And to champion Gene Kennard of Evansville, Indiana, a $5,000 education at any university he chooses. Close on his heels in the scoring is runner-up Jimmy Heimer of Phoenix, Arizona, who receives a $2,000 scholarship. In addition to the scholarship, Kennard receives this beautiful trophy from the hands of Mr. Edsel Ford. Probably the happiest person there is Gene's mother as she stands at her boy's side. These two boys are not the only winners, however, for 3 boys receive $500 scholarships, the next 8 receive $250 awards, and the next 35 $100 apiece. Congratulations and good driving all.
There's beauty and pleasure for business and leisure with 8. My cylinders, count them, are 8. What others do well in, we're built to excel in with 8.